Welcome to the Wake Up Dad Show, a Daddiest production. This podcast is for you, Dad. This is where we talk about all things related to dadhood, from parenting to relationships to financial and physical health. Your hosts, Dr. Scott and Dr. Evan, are two dads who are committed to helping you. Join our Facebook community by searching Daddiest, where conscious dads connect and collaborate.
Hey dads, welcome to another episode of the Wake Up Dad Show, brought to you by Daddiest. I'm your co-host, Dr. Ev, and I've got with me Dr. Scotty V. How's it going, Scott?
Good. Another beautiful day here in paradise, looking up at the sky at the moment, and I do not see a cloud. And just out of curiosity, Ev, what was your temperature today?
Oh, it was awesome. It was 15 degrees Celsius. We were running around outside, playing baseball, soccer. It was gorgeous. We're in shorts, t-shirts, and basking in the sun. It was awesome. How about you?
It is now winter. So technically, okay, this is this is one of these funny Aussie things. The winter and summer solstice, right? Like where the actual winters changes. It's like June 21st, December 21st, right? It's like longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere is June 21st, right? So that's the beginning of summer officially. You know that, right?
Right.
Every Canadian knows that.
Yeah.
Here in Australia, they don't talk about that at all. Winter starts on June 1st. For no particular reason. And June, July, and August is winter. So it's now like whatever it is, the 3rd of June here. And so it's winter. And anyways, it is now 20 degrees here in lovely Tugan.
So there's something wrong with that. Like associating winter with those temperatures, you got to come up with a different name. It's like, like summer and then
not quite summer.
Yeah, it's like summer
NQS.
break. Yeah, summer and kind of summer or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't call it winter.
I know.
That's misleading. It's misleading, and it's not funny.
It kind of is. We are laughing about it. It kind of is funny, but anyways, sidetrack there.
Anyway,
So that's about it for me over here. Just another beautiful day, another podcast. We got a great topic tonight. Working title at the moment is Making Decisions Without Involving Your Partner, Friend or Foe. So, dads, who's guilty? And I don't actually, this is a rhetorical question because one, you can't answer because it's a podcast. But two, I know you're guilty of it. I know you are. It's just a matter of how guilty are you? Are you like chronically guilty where like you don't enroll and involve your partner in any decisions? You just make shit up and go for it. Or is it certain ones, right? And we're going to have a little bit of a focus on really the decisions that affect the family, right? There's decisions that obviously as dads we're going to make on our own and don't need input from the family that involve us or slightly to a certain degree the family that really you don't really need input. Like, what are you going to have for dinner tonight? Or, like really simple stuff. But the big ones, right? And it came up from a post in our Daddiest group, our Daddiest Facebook group. So if you're not a part of that group yet, go join it. Daddiest, where conscious dads connect and collaborate. Check it out. And there's a post that was brought up about a health concern, and the dad in there was like, gave us this situation, and we won't mention it directly because it is a private group in there, so we won't mention names or actual specifics on it. But it was a health concern that the dad was having, and he put it out to the group. This is what's going on, and what do you guys think? Should I tell my partner? And the overwhelming majority, of the comments were like, yeah, time to tell your partner, like for sure, like involve her in this decision and choice about where you're at and where things are going. So health related decisions, financial decisions, relationship decisions is what we're really talking about here tonight. And where we're at as dads, and me and Evan, the pre-show here, we're just having a chat about it and saying, by far, dads don't think we've got this one sorted. And we're like preaching down to you about it, because I do not have this one sorted. I struggle with this one all the time, and I'm still guilty of it regularly, to just go ahead and make decisions without involving my partner. And usually it doesn't work out well, but I keep doing it for some reason. So, it's one that I really want to work on. And it's really, I think, come about, you want to chat about this, Ev, like when working on the book in our P5 passion and creating that better connection with our partners, because connection is where I think the biggest part is missing for creating a long lasting relationship, one that actually stands the test of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that chapter, P5 passion, we talk about the things that need to be there as a foundation for creating strong connection with your partner. And then, then it's about hitting like the bonus points. Some dads are out there, thinking if they come home with like chocolates and flowers or take her out on a nice date, then they're good to go, but they don't have any foundation under them. And so they're just, they're not really, they're not doing the do that's really going to create that strong connection with their partner. That's going to make all that other stuff really take it to the next level. So just kind of go back, like that example of the guy who had the health concern, and it was the way he wrote it, it really struck me, because he was saying that his partner, his wife, is already taking on like a really heavy load, and was like already stressed out. And so he thought that, by not telling her and just making the decision, he'd, be protecting her from the stress. And I think that's the part that really got me. Like my wife, she runs her own business, and there's employee stuff, there's this and that, there's she's dealing with stuff all the time. And so plus we've got like 3 kids, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot that can change, and like in a day, things can pivot multiple dozens of times. And so I've always been aware of like, when am I going to talk about a particular topic where she's going to need resources? She's going to need some brain space, and to deal with that, that situation. And so I'm just going to say, like, I'm like not doing well with that, like that whole like timing things and all that. Like, sometimes things that need to be approached earlier end up happening later, and that's not good either, because some things are timely. So what we've discovered is a really great method for this situation, where perhaps like the dad is trying to protect, or is concerned that the answer's not going to go the way that they want, or they're embarrassed, whatever it is, the reason why they're not involving their spouse, or they just think they're like totally know exactly everything like about that particular thing, and they don't even need to like involve the spouse in that particular thing. And that might be like, yeah, I'm just going to go invest my money in this thing, I know that this is the right thing to do. So first of all, we're just going to lay this out there, is that when we involve our partner in the decision making, number one, it doesn't mean that we're giving the decision to them. That's not what we're saying here. We're saying we're involving them in the decision making process. We're getting their thoughts on a particular topic, and with that, we can actually like create a decision and forward movement together. And without doing that, we're actually making the decision alone. So now there's none of that connection. There's none of that communication. They're not aware of any of this thing that's happening. So as a result of us not communicating with them about the decision that's being made, there's a lack of connection there. And let's just say we make the right decision. We didn't involve our partner, but we made the right decision. We can't celebrate with them. It's not like we did it together and we can celebrate and high five each other. And if it's a situation or a decision that's involving, say, finances or involving health, and let's say you decide not to get the procedure, and then it becomes an emergency, and now there's a real problem, or you make a decision financially and that thing tanks. Well, guess what? It's all on you. Okay. And that's not going to go well, because either you try to hide that or whatever, eventually, it's probably going to come out, and that's even worse. So what we are talking about is working on it together. So I'll let you stack onto that, Scotty.
Well, I think it, a lot of times does come back to, like you said, with that, the whole idea of us as dads, like being the rock for the family. And I still think that we can and are a lot of the times the rock, right? Just as being men and being masculine in our manlyhood and all of that stuff is, encompassed in that is being the rock for the family. That doesn't mean that we need to hide and shelter things for the perceived protection of the family. I think, dads, correct me if I'm wrong. And again, this is rhetorical because you can't really correct me if I'm wrong in this podcast. So I'm just going to go ahead. Have you, Dad, is it a common thing that your wife says things like, man, I wish you would just tell me less about what's going on in your head. You tell me everything, and I'm just sick of hearing about your feelings. I'm just so tired of it. I can't handle it anymore. Just tell me less. Said no partner ever, right? It just doesn't, we don't work that way. And so this is a challenge for us, right? We're talking about decision-making processes here, but it's really just in general about how we're feeling, which there's that real interaction or gray area between our feelings and decision-making. Because if you think about it, we're talking about things like our finances, our health, and our passionate relationships. All three of those engage huge amounts of feelings as well. So we're not really, I don't think in the end, I don't think almost ever is it going to be a good thing to quote unquote protect our partners or our families by hiding and concealing these bigger decision-making processes or our feelings about them. So I think it's, really important for us that understanding being the rock, we talked about it in the group numerous times about, the idea of strength in vulnerability, strength in openness. And I think a lot of times we feel like we're being the stronger person for not sharing, but in reality, it's sort of a bit of cowardice, right? A lot of the times we're afraid of what our partners might say or think or feel about these situations, and the whole masculine feminine plays into it. And the feminine wants that connection. They want to be involved in the feelings, in the decision making, and as I've said, even if what is said in that conversation is ultimately not taken on board, and the decision is made in whatever way that you felt, and there might be an argument about it or whatever, I think that's still, they're in the decision making process, and that's where that openness comes from, and that's where that connection can become deeper, right? And then it becomes easier. We say it all the time. It's like exercising a muscle, and we all get that, I think, as dads. There's quite a few of us probably around with the old dad bod, and we want to get fitter and stuff, but a lot of us have, at least at some point in our lives, felt that strength and realize that when we're training regularly, that it does get easier to continue on with that. And so think about it like that with all of these things to have the best life possible. So in performance, of course, I think is the one for dads that most of us get. But we can use that as a springboard to look at all of the other areas of our lives, our passionate relationships, our relationships with our kids, our finances, and make sure that we are using the same principles, because that's the thing about it, is the principles are the same. It's just where we apply them makes all the difference in our lives.
Something that you said that I was thinking about, we did a previous podcast on the masculine, one of the masculine traits is actually decision making. And that when we're not providing that decision making in our relationship, then and forcing our feminine wife to make decisions, they become more masculine in the process. So I want to make sure that we're not creating some confusion here. So here's a scenario. Okay, so I had one, and I was sharing with Scott pre-show. So we have an Airbnb, and we had this idea that we would really like to make as much money during the high season summer, doing like short, say 2 to 5 day or 7 day rentals, and just make as much as we can over the high season, which for us is the same as Scott's winter. So our June, July, August is our highest season. And then we thought, it'd be really great to rent it out during the off season and just have one renter and make as much as we can that way. So lo and behold, we get a renter come message us, and they want the off season 5 months. So I'm like really excited. Now I do most of the stuff with the Airbnb. I don't involve, like, it's kind of like, that's my thing. But this is a $12,000 deal. And I had a little bit of uncertainty because the pricing and everything was a little bit below what we were looking for. And I could have just made a decision. But I thought, you know what? This one is really going to have an impact. This one's going to have a big impact. And it's going to release a lot of stress, and we're not going to have to carry this place at all during those times. It's going to cover it. So what I did was I said, Shai, I've got a win here. So I started it off without raising the stress hormones. And I didn't say, got something I need to talk to you about. I said, I've got a win. So right away, she's like, okay, it's a win. The situation is we've got people that want the place. There's a couple things that we could do here. And I gave her 2 options about what we could do. And then she provided some input that I wasn't even expecting, but it was awesome. And so it ended up that with her input on that, not only did we secure the deal, but we made more, and the people actually paid a little bit less. It's hard to imagine, but it worked out that way. But they were getting into the details, and that wouldn't have happened if I didn't approach that situation. And to go over to, so that's a financial one, and just kind of bring back the situation that had come up in our Daddiest page. And that's in that situation, there's a way to approach it, because if you're dealing with, if your spouse is already stressed, generally stressed, and you've got something that's stressing you, then coming to the conversation in a particular way will really have an impact on the outcome. And so the coaching on the way to approach the conversation is to, number one, approach it like removing the idea that it could be a stressful conversation. So, hey, I just wanted to get your thoughts on something. You got a minute? All right. That's not an intimidating approach. versus I got something I really need to talk to you about. That could be. And if you're raising the stress hormones right out of the gate, then the way the brain works is it goes into fight or flight, and all of a sudden that amazing creative beauty that the feminine can come to the table with, all of a sudden disappears. And you want that there. So if you keep them in the frontal cortex, where they're using their, more evolved brain, and, tapping into all the things that the female can that we're not able to, because we're just wired differently. So approach the conversation like, hey, I need to get your thoughts on something, and then have done your research already. And that's the masculine, where you've done your homework, you know what your options are, and you can just lay them out and be like, so option A is that I get the procedure done. I'm going to be off for this amount of time. This is going to be the loss of income. Afterwards, this is what they're saying is going to be my recovery. And the reason that I'm thinking this could be a good route is because it's affecting me X, Y, and Z. This is how it's affecting my daily activities, me as a dad, me as a husband, because maybe they don't know any of that. Or I delay, and, perhaps do it, next year at this time, which may be better timing, What do you think? What are your thoughts? And what's so cool about that is that, she'll give it some time to think about it, and then come back, and now all of a sudden you're on the same team. You're actually connected. You've let her into your world. You haven't stressed her out. She may actually have some compassion because you may be now actually sharing with her something that's going on with you that she didn't know about, and has been like, wow, I didn't know he was dealing with that stuff. And wow, that's really cool that he thought this through and brought it to me in such a way that I'm able to digest this information. And, and then she'll be able to decide what can she handle, when it comes to the loss of income and all the things that, could potentially happen because he may be going in for whatever, a procedure that, could be a life-threatening procedure, who knows? But she can come to terms with that versus just, I'm going ahead and I'm doing this. And now all of a sudden they're left in the wake of your decision without having any say. So we talked about it in the pre-show. Things go well. You go through that, even if it's a difficult thing, but in the end, things go well. You get to celebrate together. You made that decision together and you work together on that versus you actually creating distance or separation because you just went ahead and did it on your own, maybe kept the information from them. And if it didn't go well, maybe you had to keep keeping information from them. And if it did go well, then you kind of have to decide whether you're going to tell them as well because you didn't share it with them earlier. So there's no real win. The win is really in involving your partner in the decision-making process in a way that is constructive. And that's the part that I really want to highlight. There's a way to approach it and a way to not approach it.
Yeah, and I think, think about it like this is things are going to happen anyway, right? Decisions are going to be made even if, by not making a decision, you're still making a decision. And I think we all know that how it turns out when we don't involve our partners in bigger decisions. And, most of the time it's not great. And I think I'll speak for myself. I'm a slow learner. And sometimes, I don't learn, and it takes, the same mistake over and over and over again. You probably heard that before as well. If you don't learn something, the same thing will be presented to you over and over again until you learn. And so, yeah, it's a process, it's a difficult one. There's no doubt about it that this is not an easy thing. It goes outside the norm. It goes outside what we are used to. And I'm saying we because I'm talking about me, but I don't want to make it sound like I'm talking about myself. You know, it is a difficult thing to do, and it's a constant because these decisions come up all the time. You know, I've said it earlier. I think, you know, you could pivot dozens of times in a day. And so if you start with some smaller things, I think that's the way to think about it, because what we want you to do, dads, is to try this on, give it a go and see how it goes in your life, right? The way you approach is it is everything. The way, like as Ev mentioned, without trying to we'll get into the, you know, biochemistry of it, elicit the fight or flight response, and keep them in their prefrontal cortex, their decision making, calm minded, you know, that's all well and good and it makes sense, but really it's just about involving and start on a small scale, right? So even the decisions that you think might be smaller, like as I mentioned earlier, might not need the input on, that might be a place to start, to test the waters, to see how it goes and to test out your approach to it, right? To test out how you're going to open up these conversations, when it's going to happen. You know, I think sometimes we might do the, you know, at the getting the kids ready for school and out the door type scenario, and bring up something during that craziness. And that's just wrong. I can tell you that is not the time to do it. It does not work. You know, it has to be a time where there's just the two of you guys. So it's, you know, opening up that conversation in a way that's going to be openly received by a partner. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that'd be my sort of input on it. Is if it sounds like a too big of an obstacle to tackle with some big decision making processes that you might have, start with some smaller stuff and work your way up. Like we said, it's just like at the gym. You're not going to go in your first time after, well, you might go in your first time after not being in the gym for a couple of years and think that you're going to bench press what you did when you were 20. You know, I think we've all done that too. Like I said, we're slow learners sometimes, but you feel that the next day, don't you? You know, you get into that gym and you get back to it, and you can't move the next day, and you're like, man, what did I do? It's because, you know, you did too much. And so just take it slow, dads. This is a long game. This isn't a short game. This is about creating a relationship that is lasting, right? It's not going to be, well, because we've talked about it before with the stats, and the stats of early parenthood in particular with divorce rates are phenomenal. And I think this is probably why the stress builds and we become more isolated and secluded instead of involving our partners in a lot of these decision-making processes and our feelings. We do the opposite. We go in the completely, you know, 180 degree situation. You know, it's like saying, if you are looking for a sunrise and you keep running west, you're never going to find one, right? You need to open up and do what works. So we're asking you to try this on and see how it goes for you. We'd love some feedback about it as well.
Yeah, and actually, I just had a thought about our P6 play. You know, I think sometimes, like, especially yeah, I mean, once kids come into the picture, a lot of times dads drop off the amount of play in their life, and then, you know, and it's they, you know, a lot of them have guilt over, you know, doing stuff, you know, for themselves and that kind of thing, and they may have thoughts about it, like, oh, I'd really like to, like, get out for a night or something, you know, go for beers with my guys, or maybe get back involved in the sport or whatever. And then, no, she's, you know, she's like probably not going to be okay with that. You know, she's got to be home all the time or whatever, And like, just like having a conversation in your head. And that might be like the moment to just stop for a sec and be like, am I just like making the decision all on my own here? Like, this is something that maybe is a need of mine. And why don't I just like bring it up? But again, do it in a way it's like, hey, I want to get your thoughts on something. So I've been thinking about, I used to play basketball a lot, and I know both of us, like, we're like super busy, with the kids and everything. And I don't know if there's something that you would want to do, for yourself, but I'm starting to think, like, I think there's something I think I need to, like, do something. And so maybe we could support each other on it. I was thinking get back into basketball, and I know you used to love this. Like, what do you think? Do you think it's time, or do you think it's, and all of a sudden now you're working on it together versus maybe being even resentful that, you didn't even talk about it. You just, like, totally didn't even bring it up, and you're not doing it. And maybe that's where resentment comes in, and that's no good. So play is super important for us. Play, we need to get out, we need to have fun, we need to move our bodies, we need to, like, socialize, all these different things. We need that in our life. That's why it's one of the P6, because it's a foundation. So all of the different P's have, like, this principle, this concept that we're talking about right now is interchangeable between all the P's. And like Scott said, um, give it a try. Um, I've been noticing, because of this work we've been doing with Daddiest and writing the book, and talking with the other dads in the Daddiest Facebook group, which is just absolutely phenomenal. I'm applying these things in my life, and I'm finding some really amazing things happening in my relationship. So I'd love to hear what you guys find with this. So that's it for me. Any final thoughts for you, Scott?
No, just that's awesome. It's so important, because to be absolutely truthful, I probably did that as early as probably yesterday when it came to play, right?
Mm,
And realizing how important that is for us, and just, yeah, being resentful about something that I didn't even say, right? So
mhm.
absolutely, yeah. And we talked about health and finances and the big stuff, but play that seems small really could be the difference between a dad who loves life and a dad who's depressed, right?
Hey,
And it could make all the difference in the world. So
all the
yeah,
difference. What
this
about what about passion, man? What about lovemaking, sex? Like, you could use the same principle with that.
absolutely.
It's like you've got it's like maybe you need to have it more, or whatever, whatever it may be. And again, being able to bring it up in a certain way and involving her in the process of creating something together where it's working for both of you, because maybe there's things that are going on with her that you don't know about. And you can formulate that conversation where now you're actually involved in the process together. So yeah, it's really, as we're talking, I'm realizing all the areas that, this could be really transformational for dads in creating a strong connection with their wives. And like you said, long term, I don't think we go into marriage to end it in divorce. Like, raise your hand, dad, if you got married because you think you're going to get divorced. Like, you know, no.
Yeah, what's the end goal here? Divorce? Huh?
Yeah, no, nobody
No,
goes
that's
into
not.
it that way. No. So, like, really, what are you committed to? And, if we can create stronger connection, and for the long term, why don't we go for it? I heard a dismal stat. I'm actually even, I can't even believe this. So one of my good friends is connected with a divorce attorney, and we were just talking about business, and she was saying, like, business is booming, and he's like, really? And he's like, yeah, like, isn't it like 50-50, like, staying together, whatever. She's like, no, 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 not even close. He's like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, those aren't the stats. 71.9% of marriages are ending in divorce now. Now, for some reason, they're not sharing those stats. I think I know why they're not sharing those stats, but that's crazy numbers. Now,
72%. Wow.
we don't go into it thinking, first of all, I knew it was 50-50 going to marriage, and I'm like, I'm not the 50%, and I'm not the 29% or 28% either. Or sorry, 72%. I'm in the 28%. Right? We're talking about building a long-term, amazing relationship where your kids are flourishing and you really have it all. You have it all. You've got that great companionship, the passion, your finances are in order, you have adventure in your life, you're having fun, got a career, something that's purposeful in your life, you've got your health. That's what we're looking at. So yeah, we're gonna the daddiest dance, those aren't our stats, I'll tell you that.
But if you do happen to fall into that stat, as in you're already there, this stuff all applies to whatever relationship you're in. Just as a caveat, just as a, obviously, if you're one of the dads listening and you're not with the mother of your kids and you're in another relationship, or you're not in one, this is something that you can really try on with your relationship with your kids and, in your next relationship, so that, again, nobody goes into a relationship with thinking that it's going to end. And if you do, well, that's a whole other story. I don't even know what to say. But, most people don't go into a relationship with the end goal being that it's going to end. Right. So I think as we continuously dive deeper into this, it's just going to get, more and more awesome as to what we come up with and some of the ways that we can try these things on to get amazing results in our life. I think that's what I got to say. What do you got?
That's it, man. Love it.
You're done.
Till next time, dads. See you on the Daddiest Facebook page. See you on the next or the next podcast.
See you then.
Thanks for listening. Remember, join our Facebook community, Daddiest, where conscious dads connect and collaborate.